When you hear the word pirate, the image that immediately comes to mind is a one-legged gentleman with a parrot on his shoulder, sailing the Caribbean Sea in search of Spanish gold, Jack Sparrow, rum, yo-ho-ho, and all that jazz. But what if I told you that the most successful, most organized, and most terrifying pirates in history had nothing to do with the Caribbean? They were based in Africa and for 300 years held all of Europe in fear, from England to Italy. These guys were not just a band of sea robbers, but entire states built on piracy, with a clear economy, a navy, and, forgive the pun, an excellent business plan. They captured and sold over 1 million Europeans into slavery. Yes, you heard that right, 1 million. So were there pirates in Africa? Oh yes, and they were far cooler and more terrifying than any fictional pirate with a wooden leg. Let's meet our anti-hero. His name was Jan Janzoen van Haarlem, and he was, strangely enough, a Dutchman. A typical sailor from the 17th century who once got into trouble. His ship was captured by Barbary pirates. But instead of miserably rowing in the galleys, Jan showed miracles of careerism. He converted to Islam, took the name Murat Reis the Younger, and became a pirate himself. And not just any pirate, but one of the most daring. His main obsession was to prove that for a true pirate, there are no borders. He didn't just rob ships in the Mediterranean Sea. Oh no, that was for beginners. Murat Reis turned piracy into an international tour. He was based in the port of Salé on the Atlantic coast of Morocco, which gave him access to the ocean. His key mistake, from the European point of view, and a stroke of genius from a pirate's perspective, was his audacity. Imagine this scene. One day he sailed to Iceland. Yes, to cold, forgotten Iceland. In 1627, he captured 400 people there, whom he later sold in the slave markets of Algiers. It's as if modern Somali pirates captured a cruise liner somewhere off the coast of Greenland. Absolute madness that perfectly shows his character. But how did this whole system work? It wasn't chaotic robbery. Imagine a pirate state as a kind of aggressive startup with government support. The main problem they were solving was, of course, enrichment, but they did it on an industrial scale. The basis of their fleet was not cumbersome galleons, but light and fast xebecs and galleys. Their tactics were like a sports car against a semi-truck. They didn't engage in long artillery duels, but rapidly closed in on a merchant vessel, boarded it, and captured the crew and cargo. Everything was clearly organized. The ship captains, or races, were respected members of society. A portion of the loot went to the ruler, for example, the Dey of Algiers. Part went to equipping the ships, and the rest was divided among the crew according to pre-agreed shares. The most ingenious part of the mechanism was that the main commodity was not gold and spices, but people. Captured Europeans could either be sold into slavery or, more profitably, be ransomed for a huge sum by their relatives or special religious orders that dealt with this. It was a conveyor belt. And what happened to the ordinary people who became victims of this conveyor belt? Imagine you are a simple fisherman from Cornwall or a merchant from Genoa. Just yesterday you were going about your business peacefully, and today your ship is surrounded by fast-moving vessels with crescents on their flags. After a short and bloody fight, you are in shackles, at the bottom of a stinking hold, sailing into the unknown. The main dilemma for a captive was to survive the journey. The conditions were horrific. Many died from disease and starvation even before arriving in Algiers or Tunis. Upon arrival, a person would end up in a slave market, where they were inspected like cattle and sold. Their subsequent fate depended on their status and skills. Aristocrats and wealthy merchants were kept in tolerable conditions, awaiting ransom. Common sailors and craftsmen ended up in the galleys, on construction sites, or in servitude. People tried to adapt, learned the language, and converted to Islam in the hope of improving their lot. But life after captivity was forever changed. Even those who were lucky enough to return home after many years were broken physically and mentally. So what was the price of all this? For Europe, it was colossal. The main victim was Mediterranean trade. Insurance rates skyrocketed, and some routes became virtually impassable without a military convoy. The dark side of this phenomenon was that entire coastal areas of Italy and Spain became depopulated. People were simply afraid to live by the sea, knowing that a pirate raid could happen at any moment. Millions of pounds sterling, francs, and doubloons were spent not on development but on ransoms, building fortifications, and equipping punitive expeditions. But there was also an amusing aspect related to foolishness. For example, many European countries, including the mighty England and France, preferred not to fight but to pay the Barbary states an annual tribute. In essence, they were paying pirates not to rob them. It's like paying a robber a subscription fee for the security of your own home. This system worked for decades because a full-scale war was even more expensive. The pirates, upon receiving the money, would immediately break the agreement and rob the ships of smaller countries. A classic. Eventually, the Americans, then a very young nation, got tired of it. Their great idea was to tell this whole tribute system to go to hell. When, in 1801, the Pasha of Tripoli demanded $225,000 from the new administration of Thomas Jefferson, Jefferson responded in a come-and-get-it style and sent a fleet to the shores of Africa. Thus began the First Barbary War. The Americans believed that their brand-new frigates would quickly solve the problem. They were young, full of idealism, and had excellent cannons. However, a grand failure in planning awaited them. It turned out that fighting thousands of miles from home was a logistical nightmare. The pirates did not engage in open battles but hid in shallow waters, where large ships could not go. The Americans lost one of their best ships, the frigate Philadelphia, which ran aground and was captured. Its 300 sailors were taken prisoner. The most ironic result is that the war, which began with a refusal to pay, ended with the U.S. paying $60,000 in ransom for its prisoners. Although the war did not crush the pirates, it did create a navy and the first national heroes for America. So what finally put an end to the 300-year era of the Barbary pirates? The inconspicuous detail that changed everything was steam. More precisely, the steam engine. For centuries, the sailing fleets of Europe played a cat-and-mouse game with the pirates. The pirate xebecs were faster and more maneuverable in coastal waters, especially in calm weather when heavy ships of the line were simply stuck. The pirates could easily escape pursuit, or conversely, catch up with a defenseless merchant ship. It was a technological dead end. But in the early 19th century, everything changed. The first steamboats appeared, followed by steam-powered warships. This new type of vessel was completely indifferent to the wind. They could sail anywhere at a constant speed, enter any bay, and pursue pirates even into their own lairs. It was a technological knockout. The process had begun. In 1830, the French, using a fleet with steamships, captured Algiers, the main pirate hive. The era of the Barbary corsairs came to an inglorious end, not in a great naval battle, but because of an engineering revolution. So, were there pirates in Africa? Yes, and they were not just robbers, but part of a complex economic and political system that terrorized Europe for centuries. Their story is not a romantic myth, but a brutal reality of state-sponsored racketeering, the slave trade, and how a single technological innovation can instantly change the balance of power on the entire planet. What do you think? Can parallels be drawn between the Barbary states, which lived off robbery and ransom, and modern corporations, or even countries that use economic pressure to achieve their goals? Where is the line between piracy and high politics? Write your opinion in the comments. It will be interesting to read. And of course, if you learned something new, support us with a like and a subscription. By the way, the history of piracy is full of other unexpected twists. For example, have you ever heard of a Chinese pirate queen who commanded a fleet of 2,000 ships and brought an entire empire to its knees? But perhaps we'll talk about that next time. Stay with us.